do our orange and yellow sunset at the beach. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to figure out my horizon line. I'm going to take my pencil, and again, when we do horizon lines, we want to make sure it's as straight across the canvas as possible. If it tilts like this, it's looking like you got your head turned while you're looking at the horizon. So we want to keep it as straight as possible. I also want to avoid cutting my canvas directly in half. I like to go a little bit higher than the halfway point. And if I look at this, I think it's pretty straight here. We got going. So what I'm going to do, that's all I'm going to do. That's all I'm going to draw today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my biggest brush, and I'm going to make sure it's nice and clean and dry from the last time that I painted. And I'm going to start by painting just a little bit of yellow. We're just going to make this whole sky yellow and orange. It's just a nice sunset. So what I'm doing is I'm starting yellow. Now when I want these colors to blend, like I will so much of this painting, I want to make sure both colors are wet. That's how they're going to blend nicely together. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to add a touch of red to my yellow. Make a little orange. And I don't want it to be too bright of an orange. So I've got my orange here. So it's not too bright. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start putting that in here. Now again, I see two colors, and what I want to see is a nice blended color. I want to have some of this orange on here, but I don't want to turn my sky completely orange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wipe some of this excess off, clean it off in my water, dry it off really, really good, come back, and I want these two to blend together. So I'm going to dip a little bit of yellow and just go right over it. And as you can see, when you mix that yellow in, you can go right up to the top. Just keep going back and forth. But when I mix that yellow in, that's what's blending those two together. So I'm going to just keep going over it again and again and again. That's what's going to make those two colors come together. If you're having a hard time and it's not coming together, likely what's happening is one of your colors is dry. So if that's the case, you want to add a little of each color and then start again. And that's going to blend them. Like this. Got a nice little sunset sky going there. And I don't have any just yellow. I've got the yellow and orange the entire way, which is exactly what I wanted. So then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rinse off this brush and get it all nice and dry. Make sure every part of it's dry so that no drips, no surprises. And I am going to, in the beginner stages, we didn't typically go right up to the next color when we do something like this, but now that we've kind of gotten used to painting and we've worked with our colors a couple times and everything, I am going to take my blue and I'm going to go right up to this line. Now what I want to be cautious of, you don't want them to mix. Don't want them to blend. I want them to be two totally separate colors. So I'm going to take this flat edge, I'm going to take just my blue, and I'm going to, as carefully as I can, come right up to this color without going on or over the color. So if that means going slow, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take my time. Patience is one of the best things you can have when you're painting, especially when you're painting a straight line. And I'm just going to go right ahead, and I'm going to keep pushing that paint to the side, and I want this really smooth line. I don't want this. See how I've got this spot with blue where white is coming in? For here, that's okay, but if it's up here, I want you to add more paint and push that around, because that's telling you that there's not enough paint on your brush. For here, it's not a big deal because we're still adding paint. But if it does it on the horizon, you want to make sure that you get more paint on your brush. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold this upright. I'm going to make sure that my horizon is still straight. I'm going to dip both sides into my paint. And though I'm going to cover a lot of this with blue, I still want to be cautious with how much paint I use, because I am going to want to paint over this. I am going to add some more stuff. So I want to make sure that I spread out any thick lines of paint, because that's going to give me the best way of having it dry fast enough so that I can go ahead and do what I want to do to finish my painting. So when I come to about here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip into my white. I'm going to get a fair amount on there, and I'm going to come across here. Now again, if I leave it just like this, what do you see? See bands of color, right? So the more that I go over it, the more they're going to blend together. So look what I'm going to do. I'm going to come up as I go, coming up right into the dark blue. And then look what happens. They blended right together. So that's what I want to see. That's exactly what I want to see. So that's how you keep getting those blends. Now, as I come down to the shoreline, I want to make sure that I keep adding white, because I want it to be lighter and lighter. I don't want it to be completely white, but I do want it to be lighter and lighter blue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to keep adding the white, and it's just making a nice light blue here and going right across, and again coming right up so that it keeps blending. Now again, if one of my colors was dry, this would not be blending. It would not be working out. So that's what you want there. Now what I want to do is I want to make a brown, because I want to have a little sand color here. So I'm going to think of my color wheel again. I'm going to figure out how to make my brown. So in this case, I've already got some orange going, so I'll make a little bit more. And then I'll take that orange, and I need it to go to the opposite color on my color wheel, which is going to be blue. And as I blend, I can see it start to come here. I'm going to add some more orange. I think I added a little too much blue there, which is okay. You're just going to keep mixing and adding some orange. And now you can see it turn into brown. Perfect. And then what I'm going to do is I want to lighten it. I'm going to add just a little bit of white. got a nice light brown going here. And I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to come right here. I'm going to come straight across. Just like this, and I can blend even a little bit into that blue, no big deal. So that I get a nice smooth line. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to rinse off this brush because I want it to get even lighter as it goes away from the water. So when sand gets wet, it's darker. So by the water, it's going to be darker. And then I'm going to go ahead, now I'm going to check to see where I can hold onto my canvas. Depending on your lighting, you should be able to see some reflection here. And so I can tell my water is definitely wet. My sky is almost dry. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold on to my sky. I've got a nice clean brush. I'm dipping it only in white. And I'm going to start to spread this brown and white together. Add a little bit more as I need. And again, this would not be working if my colors are not wet. So if you're having a hard time, check to make sure that both of your colors are wet. That's how you're going to get that blend. So, got a nice sky, some nice water, some sand. I think we're ready. So we're going to go ahead, set that down. And then dry off this brush. And what I can do is I can start getting my colors ready for my palm trees because I'm going to add 2 palm trees, 1 on each side of my canvas. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start making my brown again. My orange worked out pretty well with my blue, so I'm going to go ahead and make some more orange. And I'm going to add some blue. Added a little bit more yellow here. And I'm getting some brown. Now I want it to be a little bit darker this time, so I'm going to add some black to it. Don't add too much or you'll simply turn it black. If that happens, just take some of your other brown, add it in. Now you've got a darker shade of brown. You can see the 2, one dark and one light here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to look to see if my canvas is dry. My canvas isn't quite dry, so what I want to do is I want to give it a minute because though I wanted all of these to blend, I want my other ones to stand out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give that a minute. While I wait, I can go ahead and I can take my smallest brush and I can roll it right into my yellow paint and I can turn my canvas. Now again, I want to be careful where I anchor my hand because I can see some reflections. There's not a lot. So I'm going to use maybe just the knuckle here. And I'm going to give myself just a little bit of a faint sun here. Nothing too crazy. And I'm just giving myself a half circle. Just like that. And just a little bit of a sun going in there. And add just a little bit of white. Again, just to be able to Get a little distinction here between where the sun is versus where the sky is. Just like that. And then again, I'm going to check. Oh, it's almost dry. And actually, I'm looking at my edges here, which is where I'm going to put my palm trees. So right here and here, my edges, right where I want my palm trees, are actually dry. So I can go ahead and start painting those. Now, when I think of my palm trees, I'm going to go up just above my horizon, taking my widest brush. It's already got that brown on there. And I'm going to kind of bump it around like this. If you think of a palm tree, they're not exactly known to be flat and smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to bounce it around so that we've got some texture here. And this is my main base color, so I don't want to see my blue unless it's on an edge where, you know, it got kind of thin, which is okay. I'm going to dip back in here. I'm going to go the same height. And again, I'm just going to kind of bounce around. It's going to give me my texture. I'm going to go try and stay about the same width and the same height just so that it balances my canvas here. Just like that. Then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to dip into that light brown that I already had made. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it just a couple little highlights. Just like that. Just adds a little more interest. Again, I'm just bouncing around. I'm not hitting every space. We don't want to lose that dark brown. And then I'm going to add just a touch of white to get it even more. And again, I'm just bouncing my brush around here. Just adding some texture. Not worrying too much. We're at the beach. Nobody needs to worry at the beach. There we go. So we've got some trunks of those palm trees. Now what we can do, try this brush off. Now what we're going to do is we're going to work on our water line. And so I'm going to take my medium brush. I'm going to dip it into my white paint. I'm going to look for that flat edge. And I'm just going to go side to side here. Now again, I don't want my water to look like it's going up or diagonal or anything like that, because water typically stays flat unless there's a wave. And this is a nice calm day here, so we don't want it getting too crazy. Not too worried about wave breaks or anything like that. We just want to get some reflections in this water. Go up just a little bit. I don't want to go up too crazy. I don't want to do the whole thing. Just kind of go like this. Kind of bring it in a little bit. This water came up here, really rolled in. But we want to keep it horizontal. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to work on those palm leaves. Going to get this brush nice and cleaned out here. And I'm going to make sure it's nice and dry. And I'm going to make some green. I'm going to think of my color wheel, and the way to make my green is to take some yellow, take some blue, depends on what shade of green you want, so you can kind of mess with those colors a little bit. Now, it is important that you start small with small amounts. You don't want to waste all of your paint, so you start with small amounts and then you can work your way up to the bigger amounts. So I've got a nice green going here. Pretty happy with it. I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow to my plate here, just so that I can make a little bit more. I want to be able to roll my brush in there. go. All right. So I've got a nice green going. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin this out just a smidge. So I'm going to drip just a little bit of water in there. I'm going to mix it in so that it's nice and easy to work with. We want this to be a nice gliding brush stroke. Add just a little bit more yellow, just to thicken it up a little. All right. So remember, what's important when we add water is to really, really make sure it's mixed in. We can test it by making sure there's nothing dripping off our brush. And then we're going to blot for any extra water just in case, so we don't get any surprises. Now when we go to do our palm leaves, what I want to do is I'm going to roll this brush into the green. I want to make sure I have a good amount on there. And what I want to think about is I want to think about where my sunset is and how big I want these leaves to be, and if I want them to go towards the water, which way I want them bending. And I'm just going to have them, I'm just going to draw my first line, and it's going to go a little bit into my water. Just like that. So that's my first kind of vein. Now I'm going to go ahead, and if you look at a palm leaf, it's going to be wider at the top by the tree, and then it comes to a point at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make little brush strokes like this. And they're going to get shorter as they come to that point. But I'm going to follow that curve. And I'm going to kind of let it fill in here a little bit. Not completely, we want to be able to see it a little bit. See through it a little bit, I should say. Just like that. Then, work on the edge of this. I can make it kind of branch out just a little bit here. So you can see a little bit of each side. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to figure out where I want my next one. So I'm going to have it stay pretty easy here and stay pretty consistent. And I'm doing the same thing with this one. I'm barely pressing down with this brush. That's how I'm getting those thin wisps of paint there. I'm barely pressing down. Just like that. I'm going to do one more. And again, same thing. I've got my main line, and I'm just going to follow it, and I'm going to bend whichever way my vein tells me to bend. Barely pressing down. So there's my first palm leaves. Okay, that takes some practice, so make sure that you take your time. And I'm going to do the similar thing here. I'm going to let it come down into my water. I'm not going to cover my sun. And I'm gonna make sure I've got enough on my brush. It's a big important factor. It needs to be thin enough so it's easy to work with, but you gotta make sure you've got enough on your brush. You're gonna follow those veins. So whichever way it tells you to bend, that's the way you want your brush to go. And go ahead. Edge of that one. Another one that's curved out like this. Barely pressing down. Just like that. And then you're going to do the same thing. Just like that. And you decide how thick or how heavy you want them to be. Just like that. Now, I can already tell. Take some of my green and smash it back out here. Get some more on my plate that was stuck in my brush. And if you look, I can tell these are thicker than these ones, so I want to keep working on this one here. And make sure that I balance them out. Now it's getting better. So you want to look at those little details like that. There we go. Now, if I want to, I can go ahead and add a little bit more yellow. So I can get a little bit of a more yellowy, lighter shade of green. And I can add some highlights, some little ones, nothing too drastic here. And you're just touching a couple different spots just so that we've got a couple little areas. And then we can go ahead and add some white and make it a lighter green here. And again, add a little bit more water here. We've got a nice light green here. Add some more highlights. Fill those in a little bit. Keep following that line that you got going. And just don't press hard. That's the one thing that if I can get you to do anything with this brush, it's to not press hard. Barely touch that canvas with it when you're doing lines like this. But you gotta have enough on your brush for it to go. And then one more time, we're going to add more white than anything, so it's almost completely white, but it's still got a little bit of that green. And one more time, we're going to add some nice bright highlights. Still barely pressing down. See how it changes the look between the two though. Maybe want to do a couple right here. Okay. And there we go. So then you want to look at your painting as always. You want to look to see if there's any spots that you've missed, anything that you want to fix or go in and get better. I can see one spot up here that I do want to make a continuation of a line here, just like that. And then you're good to go. So you're going to wash off those brushes so that they're nice and ready and cleaned off to work with for the next time.